Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the show today. Can you give us a little bit of a idea as to how you got interested in this subject? Are you a truther in general?
No, I've never been an activist at all, ever. I've got quite a varied background. I'm a product development guy. I'm an inventor, and I've got a number of different technological hats that I wear. However, in the early days, after I was a materials engineer, and ended up at a secret nuclear facility where there was a secret weapons facility. And so I understood quite a bit about non-ionizing weapon systems, the things that are pretty secret, things that don't talk about a great deal. So I've always had an interest, and I've always had an interest in weapon systems. From being very, very young, I was involved in a number of different products and projects, weapon sight systems, and I started inventing weapon sight systems to mitigate some of the weapons that I knew of on the battlefield. It's quite an interesting bit of history, but what was unbelievable, I got a knock on the door from a neighbour, and she said to me, since I put these LED streetlights up, I'm bleeding from the nose.
Really?
And I thought, well, that's a bit strange, because obviously LED streetlights, I know they're not safe. I mean, they're not safe at all, depending on the design and the pulse modulation. In fact, part of a weapon system, believe it or not. However, I hadn't taken a great deal of notice, apart from me understanding that they were pretty toxic, but I knew they don't give you nosebleeds. But what I most certainly knew, radar operators get nosebleeds. And I know that sub-gigahertz frequencies give people nosebleeds and damage the bloods, cause a thing called relay. And that actually blood stacking, it's quite a regular thing. A lot of people in the military get it, especially when they're operating some of the radar equipment. And I thought, hang on a minute. And I looked up at these street lights, and it just looked like a normal dipole antenna type of equipment. Now, to get the sort of power outage from an antenna like that, it would be absolutely unbelievable. You know, you wouldn't have it in the street. Anyway, I thought, what I'll do, I'll have a little bit of investigation. Anyway, it was only a few days later, I was at a local shop, talking to another neighbour, and I said, what do you think about this? The first neighbour is having nosebleeds, just says it's the LED streetlights. This neighbour turned on, she said, I've never had nosebleeds in my life until I put those streetlights in.
How quick was the onset of the symptoms, Mark, from the installation?
Well, my knowledge of obviously I did a bit of digging afterwards, and we found out when they'd started this deployment. But prior to that, I woke up one day, the next minute I've got new lights in the street, these new LED street lights. It was in September 2016. I knew they weren't safe, because obviously the design of them, they were cocked up at the front to cause glare. Glare's illegal. You're not supposed to have artificial lights. Optical radiation's a known hazard. Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. Anybody in the industry anyway. So I was a bit concerned about the shape and the design of these particular products, but I give it no more thought than that until the nosebleeds information started. So it was about September 2016, and this happened the same month. So they'd only just been put in, and I mean, I'm quite, friendly with one of the neighbours, and she knows I've got a technical sort of scientific background, so she basically came and was concerned. She definitely linked it to the lights.
Right.
I didn't. I absolutely didn't. But then when I spoke to the next neighbour, I then thought, hang on a minute, that transmitter on the top needs a bit more investigation. So I rang the council, so it was Gateshead Council, and I asked them on the phone what had been fitted, and they were a bit, not forthcoming with the information. I said, well, look, I'll just have to send you a freedom of information request, and that's what I did. So I sent a freedom of information request, and I got data back, and the data was from a company called Harvard Technology based in Yorkshire. And when on the face of it, you look at all the documents and all the sort of books that come from these companies, and it seems pretty straightforward and pretty honest. However, I'm a little bit more suspicious than that. It's consequently, I looked at a number of the regulatory standards and the guidelines, and I realised it was a 20. They were saying it was a 25 milliwatt transmitter. And to put that into perspective, maximum I can expose you to is 1 milliwatt for 6 minutes. And I was thinking, well, why would you want a 25 milliwatt transmitter on a street light? It seems a bit powerful.
Is it to do with the specific sort of blue frequency spectrum of these lights that has any? Is that anything linked with these power requirements or these unusual specifications?
No, that's what gets. This is how it gets really, really interesting. The LED street lighting doesn't use a lot of power, right? So I was concerned about the transmitter. I then got a meter and I measured the radiation in this lady's bedroom, and I was absolutely appalled. It was 1400 to 1600 millivolts. And I know that the maximum I can expose you to, Council of Europe 1815 resolutions, 200. The latest Europem guidelines is 200. So I knew they were outside of the latest guidelines, and the Council of Europe, which is the international courts, they've said the maximum you can be exposed to is 200. Now I know that's a very high number.
Is it millivolts per metre squared? Is that what we're
Yes, millivolts per metre squared. Yeah. So 200 millivolts. Well, it doesn't matter whether it's centimetre squared or metre squared. It depends how close you are to the transmitter. But obviously, if you measure it as a metre squared, it's 200 millivolts metre squared. That's what they say you can be exposed to for long term. I don't agree with that, by the way. The bioinitiative of scientists say 30. So they take a little bit more of a pragmatic view. Very concerned that this lady's been exposed to, like I said, about 14, 15, 16. I mean, it was bouncing quite a bit. But that's obviously where the nosebleeds were coming from. And then I put some posts up on social media, and I got a lot of other people starting to talk about their children having nosebleeds. It started causing and there was a lot of kickback from trolls, internet trolls, social media trolls. So I realised there was something in it. There was a lot more in it than what I'd first encountered. Anyway, there was a local guy not far from me. His son had been bleeding from the nose, and he's quite a nimble type of chap. So he'd been up the top of the street light, and it snapped all the antennas off. About a week after that, I'm coming home, and I've got one of the lighting guys on the top of the light, fixing one of these lights. So I suggested to him that the transmitters he were fitting were dangerous. I realised they weren't Part 15 FCC, they were illegal. They had to be, because obviously at that level of radiation, a 25 milliwatt dipole antenna would not emit that type of radiation at the distances into a person's home. That would be impossible. So I knew that the company bump was a fabrication. I knew there was something very untoward about it. Anyway, he ended up throwing one of them at me. Lo and behold, when I got my hands on it, obviously my background and my experience, I understand direct energy weapon systems. I've been around them quite a bit, and I've invented a number of products to mitigate them on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. So I knew what a direct energy, I knew what a collimating and the antenna design. And when I got this thing through at me, I realised it was a bit of weaponry, it was a bit of hardware to harm. And I was looking at it and I thought, I cannot believe what I'm seeing here. Anyway, I contacted somebody in the US military who I know, and I said, can you just explain to me, or try and confirm to me what this is?
Just to make sure I'm still with you, Mark. This is like a piece of the antenna from this street lamp thing that's been chucked down to you. So what we're talking about, and yet you thought it looked rather like some sort of weapons device. Can you elaborate or clarify?
On first inspection, these things just look like a normal dipole antenna. So it looks like the thing that's on the top of your vehicle. Yeah, mm-hmm. Totally innocuous. When I actually got this piece put into my hands, I realised it was a high gain antenna with a dielectric lens. Now, what that high gain antenna allows me to do, it allows me to scan the environment. So what I could see from the bit of hardware, it was a target acquiring weapon system. Because I didn't know about, I did at the time, I didn't understand the full technicalities of 5G.
I'm prepared to accept that whatever frequency is being used and the correlation with the nosebleeds, there's something going on here. Can we be absolutely sure that it's whatever, have we measured the radiation, is it pulsed microwave radiation, or are we talking just these light frequencies? What exactly is it about the substance of these street lights, and why is it you think it's a weapons system?
Well, first and foremost, when I got the documentary evidence back from the manufacturer, it operates in the 868, 870 megahertz frequency. Now, I understand that's sub-gigahertz. That's sub-gigahertz. It's long-range radar. So I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. Why would you, if this was a communication system, be 2.5 gigahertz, very similar to what's actually in your mobile phone, be a 2.5 gigahertz frequency. So I'm thinking, hang on a minute. It's sub-gigahertz. It's battlefield interrogation part of the spectrum, because sub-gig travels quite well through brickwork, concrete. So if I want to interrogate an urban environment, I'll use a sub-gig part of the spectrum.
Is this bit of kit part of the control mechanism of the street lighting, or is it part of the sort of motion detection system that automatically switches the lights on and off? How does it fit in with the ostensive use of this is just a piece of kit to light the roads?
People that are fitting them, they believe that they're just to switch the lights on and off. Unfortunately for the local authority, the lights are on all over, because obviously the equipment doesn't work. They've rushed the equipment in and it didn't work. So the lights were on all over the place. They're on now. You can go outside. The lights are on through the day. They're off at night, on through the day. They can't control them because the technology's main purpose is it's urban environment radar. I put a thing out about this being 5G, fifth generation telecommunication systems, and I got lots of blowback. I mean, lots of blowback from scientists, people they were going, no, can it be? It's sub-gigahertz. No, that's rubbish. The industry now have admitted that 5G blanket coverage is in the sub-gig range. I've admitted it. I was far too early in 2016 because there wasn't that admission. But what the sub-gigahertz radiation spectrum allows me to do is to do full urban interrogation. And that's what we'll see. These 5G antenna, it doesn't matter whether they're the large box or these small interconnected small arrays, that all 5G. 5G is a large technical basket.
So what frequencies are we talking about here, Mark, exactly, to sort of quantify it? When you talk about these sub-giga, whatever it is, what frequencies are we in?
The antenna design was in 868. Well, the 868, I quickly realised that is the specific part of the spectrum for autonomous vehicles. Well, autonomous vehicles, it's 5G. It's 5G, and it's also got a dielectric lens which allows you to collimate a signal directly at the vehicle. Because obviously, they talk about want these higher data packets. It's quite a good little trick, this. They talk about these higher data packets, and you focus the collimated signal at the autonomous vehicle. Great idea. It's not what it's for. What this is for, it's actually to target, acquire a person and shoot them. The same technology, I mean, how people find that unbelievable. The same technology was used in South Korea to target, acquire wild boar in the jungle and shoot them. All right? And when you test any weapon system, test them on wild boar. It's quite interesting.
So these are antennas that are being attached to the top of lampposts, essentially as part of a street lighting system that have an ability to target and focus a electromagnetic field beam or a pulsed beam at a specific target in a specific location.
That is exactly.
Is this part of a 5G network in order to stream our films just a little bit quicker?
It's got absolutely nothing to do with the telecommunications system. In fact, 5G's masquerade as a telecommunications system. It's not. 5G's here to kill. 5G in all its technical parameters, a weapon system. It is not, absolutely not. I can tell you that by the power density, by the frequency, by the antenna design. That's why Theresa May needs antennas made in China. You can't make them here because they'll fail any approval test. They'll show that they're for weaponry and to harm. Mm-hmm. So that's why they're buying it. They've turned around and said they don't want Huawei being involved in the network because it's pretty interesting, but they want to allow them to have these 5G antennas to come from China. Well, the reason they need the antennas to come from China is because we couldn't make them, because anybody making them or building them will soon realise they're lethal.
So your unique insight then is that you have some history and some background in technical aspects of weaponry and so forth, and you're recognising the specifications of this this 5G network as I mean, okay, it's a bold claim to say it's a weapon system, but I'm not casting judgment on that just yet. But it at the very least is capable of doing some serious harm to people, and we've seen already nosebleeds and stuff like that. Mark, do you know anything about the alleged trial of 5G at Glastonbury this year? And I heard stories, it's just only hearsay, but I heard stories that people were coming down with, nausea, dizziness, nosebleeds, headaches, that sort of thing.
We heard quite a bit about it, and there was one of the acts who actually got up and said that she'd had a nosebleed. The BBC then were immediately on her case and said it was the temperature, the heat. Well, if it was the heat, it means that every time we go down to Spain or Egypt, we'd all get absolutely terrible nosebleeds. So the fact that the BBC already had that narrative in the bin ready to go tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not surprising to me, but yes, it's very poignant, isn't it? It's very indicative. Yeah, so it was. I mean, that was obviously allegedly a trial of 5G technology, presumably for the benefit of the festival goers, that they got better reception for their mobile devices. Do we know anything? Do you know anything about that trial, or was it completely undercover, Mark?
I think there was talk of the trial. I thought the whole thing was going to be fakery. I didn't think they were going to trial 5G, because if they had really tried 5G, they would have probably killed quite a few people. But as it happens, a few people did die.
Seriously?
Yeah, there was two. There was a security guard and another chap that died during the event. But I would expect it probably a few more. 5G's collimated signals. What I'm going to say to people is 5G's off the battlefield. That beam waves, that collimated signals, that energy in air. So if you take it out to 4G, 4G is a telecommunications system. Obviously, they're not very safe. However, 5G is focused radiation in air. That's what changes the technical parameters. One of the main technical parameters, there's a few. One of the main technical parameters is the antenna design, which is allowed to focus the signal. You focus signal in a number of different ways, either through dielectric lenses or offset signals, all creating beam waves. Those beam waves are lethal. They'll cause brain injury. One of the reasons why there's 20 troops a day in America killing themselves are being exposed to this crap on the battlefield, and they've actually got a physical brain injury.
You say these beams can be focused, presumably with some, there must be some technology behind that to accurately control that on the fly in real time. That's the harm is done by the sort of triangulation or the intersection of several beams, is it, and focused on one point?
Yes, there's one or two types of technologies that allow you to focus beams. Offset signals, you can do that. You do that with an array of antenna, so they all emit, and you can then start to create what's called a beam wave. That's basically phased array. Phased array radar, often used on the battlefield, very, very toxic. If you get in between one of those beam waves, brain injury is probably going to be one of the last things you're going to be concerned about. In fact, I know a BBC reporter having a conversation with her. She was down in Basra, and there was an overpass of some technology where they were, basically scanning the ground, and it sterilised her.
How do you know about these weapon systems, Mark? Have you had experience of them? Were you in the military, or?
No, I was never good enough to get in the military. What I mean by that, I would never do it. I was told I'm one of these terrible people that I'm pretty offensive, and I do not like orders. Don't like people telling us what to do. So the military, for me, had a small flirtation with it. Wasn't for me, and they weren't for me at all. And it's because, like I said, I'm too much immune sort of person. I don't sort of follow orders very well. The sort of maverick type, and obviously that's what makes us a good inventor. I invent things because I'm a bit of a loony maverick.
I think a healthy amount of thinking outside the box is essential these days, and that's kind of what this show's all about, and this channel's all about. So I take my hat off to you for being a maverick thinker.
Well, the good job is I'm not only just a man, I'm a pretty offensive person as well. I mean, I had a scientist said it was the other day. She said, "You're very offensive," and I said, "Fantastic." You tell a weapons expert he's offensive. I mean, well, it's a compliment. I said, "Thanks for the compliment." She was pretty upset because there's a lot of industry narrative to what they keep telling people about microwave radiation and the 5G and the millimeter waves. It is a smokescreen.
The fact that you've mentioned that there's even the technology is in place, or it will be being brought in place, where actual malicious intent could be harnessed to harm people. Even if it's only the potential for that to happen, it should be shocking enough, and it should be removed. That sort of ramps up my concern levels quite a lot. I mean, I'm naturally a little bit skeptical about that idea because you're the first person I heard it from. But it sounds like it's well worth looking into, and it's a great point of concern.
Well, I'll explain things pretty simple because when I do talks on this particular subject, I always start off with the LED streetlight. The reason I start off with that is because they can't hide it. The blue phosphor 450 nanometers is lethal. It's lethal. It's a pulse modulated radiation. It operates 3.5 electron volts. You're operating, your cells operate on a minus, negative energy number. It's a chemical process. You're a pH balance. You're basically just an electrical piece of equipment and a battery. We're pretty, interested to understand the human physiology. However, if I pour large amounts of energy into that electrical field, which that's exactly what you are, I will damage it, I'll stress it, I'll cause all sorts of issues. So 5G is most certainly not safe. Collimated signals, even more so, not safe. Now, the LED streetlights, Public Health England have warned all councils around the country about the flicker, the pulse modulation of street lighting. The LED streetlights, the ones without the diffuser, extremely toxic. They've only been in Barcelona less than 3 years. They've doubled the breast and the prostate cancer numbers in only a very short period of time. I'm going to tell you, it is toxic. It's retinal toxic. So your retinal cells, it's phototoxicity in the cell. That light hits your skin, goes into your eye. It is toxic. It's more toxic to children because they've got a clear lens. Far more toxic to children. Why are your councils? Well, your councils are being warned. So why are your councils rolling out the technology that they know all artificial light is hazardous? We know that.
Is it due to the blue spectrum? Is it essentially the harm of this blue light? Is that just due to the spectrum, or a combination of that and the way it's emitted?
Its frequency, well, it's the harm's done. It's frequency specific. It's the 450, 460 nanometers. That's very, very toxic. However, LEDs are spectrally out of balance. So when you get natural light, you get the infrared light, you get the blue light. They balance each other out. So you get something that's not as toxic. I'll tie you out on a beach somewhere for a few hours, believe us, in the sun in Spain, and it'll kill you. But it's nowhere near as toxic. The pulse modulation is what makes it lethal. And obviously I can change that pulse modulation to weaponize it. Okay. You know how you can see where I can strobe a light at you, I can make it pretty toxic. And that's probably one of the reasons why people faint and pass out when they get strobe light, because that strobe light at your body shutting down, because that is absolutely lethal to you. And I can strobe those lights at a frequency, like it's over 50 hertz, you wouldn't see it. So I can make that light pretty toxic. I can make it extremely toxic to life. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So we've got AMA, Medical Association, Share the Emerging Risk Team in Europe. We've got Public Health England. We've got ANSIS, one of the large French health regulatory bodies, right, have all stated your LED street lighting causes macular degeneration, damages your eyesight, damages your retina, damages your cornea, and it's worse for children. So ask yourself the question, why is your council rolling it out on top of you? That's a pretty straightforward one. Now, that then takes us to the 5G weapon system, because I know people don't believe what I've got to say. That's fine. That's up to them. Do your own research. I always say to people, do not believe a word I say. Do your own research in relation to 5G. What I'm going to tell you, 5G is a sophisticated weapon system and has been used for many, many years. It was a 2.5 gigahertz weapon that was used against the US Embassy in Moscow, killed 3 ambassadors. That's how successful it is. Your 2.5 gigahertz Wi-Fi that you've got in your house, use it to actually give rats diabetes. So we've got a diabetes epidemic. We've got doctors going, what's going on? Where's all this diabetes? They're blaming it on the food. It's your Wi-Fi in the house and in your office, and the overburden of it, the more transmitters, you know, when you put your Wi-Fi on in the house, you'll get 5 or 6 signals from your neighbours. It's coming through the brickwork. It's coming through your windows and your bricks and your concrete. That's 2.5 gigahertz, by the way. Sub-gig, a lot easier. I can go through 30 foot of concrete. I can see you behind it. I pass directly through your body. The dangers in the sub-gigahertz range are far more significant than what they are on the millimetre wave.
Okay. So can you explain maybe a little technicality there? One thing I understand about the 5G network is that basically the frequencies are higher. The alleged idea out there in terms of the story that's selling this technology to us for our benefit is that more data can be transmitted and you can screen your movie that much easier, et cetera, et cetera. So my understanding is that it's a higher frequency.
No, that's the industry smokescreen, right? In any part of the spectrum, I can put more data packets. It just depends how I put the data in on the quadrature amplitude modulation. So I can put more data in depending on the equipment. Doesn't matter what part of the spectrum I'm operating at. So if I'm in the sub-gigahertz, I can still put more data into the sub-gigahertz frequency. Maybe it's not as much as what I can get in the millimetre waves. But like I said, we haven't seen any deployment as yet of the millimetre wave technology. Now, I'm not saying that it's not 5G. What I'm saying is the main blanket coverage as of today is the sub-gigahertz range. Now, they're putting a transmitter on each streetlight, sub-gig. So they're saying to people, well, we need them every streetlight because in the millimetre wave. Well, no, it isn't. They're lying about that because these transmitters on the streetlights can see at distance in the built-up urban environment. So you've got to ask yourself the question, why do they want one on every single streetlight? Well, when I got my hands on the hardware, one of these streetlights had a bit of an accident with a car, and somebody came along and gave me all the bits. And lo and behold, they're taking a 250 volt source and boosting it up to 450 volts at the weapon. Bit bizarre. I can switch those lights on and off with a piece of equipment, 3.5 electron volts. So I've got 450 volts on the transmitter. And these videos, anybody can go and have a look at them. Anthony Steele, you'll see the videos showing the breakdown of the hardware with 3,300 watts of capability in a street light. Use more electricity than what your cat does. Why? The LED streetlights do not use a lot of energy. So what are they using it for? What are they trying to subdue? What are they trying to do? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's an EMP weapon.
It certainly sounds like it's a technology that could be used for crowd control purposes or for population control of some kind. I mean, it logically opens the door for the potential for that kind of use, doesn't it?
No, they're just going to wipe everybody out. I've looked at the side of ransom numbers on the equipment. I mean, we've got 31,875 transmitters in a very small area called Gateshead. Probably you've not even heard of it.
Oh, I've heard of it. The 5G thing really does sound like a more serious concern than even the basic harm that's done to our physiology by pulsed microwave radiation. The use of the mobile phone already with 4G and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all these sorts of things. So, Mark, do you know anything about the intended plan of how soon this technology is supposed to be with us? I've heard it said sort of, by the end of next year. Is that when all mobile devices are supposed to be switching over?
They started deploying 5G as from the best knowledge that we have. It was started tested in 2011. They had it pretty well deployed by 2013. I didn't get it outside my home till 2016, and obviously it was on immediately. They were scanning and testing the area. In fact, they killed quite a number of unborn babies, and that's what this type of radiation does. Kills the unborn. We had a lot of women in the locality, where the babies were dying at near full term. My brother, cousin, two ladies in the street, quite a number of people lost babies. I brought this to the attention of the council. Obviously, they weren't really interested, but what they did, I sent them a number of documents on the science and the increase that they would see in stroke, cancer, deaths, and heart attack with this type of technology. And what was quite interesting, actually wrote to me, they sent me an email from the head of health there, and he said there hadn't been an increase, but there'd been a decrease in all those illnesses, and obviously, so the stuff I'd sent him didn't really apply. He was lying. Public Health England showed there was near 23% increase in stroke over the period 2014 to 2016 in the Gateshead area. So they were lying to me on the data that I'd actually sent them. Now, ask yourself the question, why would somebody in a local authority actually send an email, a complete fabrication, a deception, to a member of a concerned person in the community, when I've availed them of the information to show that the science would show an increase in this type of death? And that's exactly what they have. So we've got quite a number of people in Gateshead who've been murdered by this technology. I don't mince my words, by the way. This is genocide. I'm a weapons expert. Barry Trower, another great guy, hero of mine. Barry broke cover about these weapons very, very early doors. Barry says it's genocide. I totally concur with him. It's genocide. Anybody says it isn't, don't know what they're talking about. That's just as a matter of fact. I get sick of scientists, experts supposed to be in this field, right, where they tell you there's not enough energy in that part of the spectrum. Never heard so much garbage in all my life because of the experiences I have, what Barry has, where this technology is being weaponized to the point where it can kill. And that's what I'm seeing rolled out right across the country, whether it be the spectrum, the antenna design, the densification, which just means significantly more this type of energy. We've seen a massive increase in diabetes. We've had massive increases in stroke, especially in young women. We've got 70,000 young women self-harming in schools. And we've got headmasters, fools, educated fools, that's what they are, scratching their head, having to put CPN, psychiatric nurses into schools to treat children for mental health issues, and they've got industrial Wi-Fi blasting them 24 hours a day to the point where they're committing suicide and self-harming.
Yeah. From what you've said, Mark, it sounds as though a lot of this network or a lot of the technology is rolled out already from the timeline that you've obviously been telling us about there. I live in rural Hertfordshire, just north of London, and I haven't seen any of this technology around my way, but I don't get out that much. But it certainly sounds like making a journey on a public highway or a government road where you can be harmed by the street lighting sounds potentially very, very frightening. And I agree with you in that everybody should do due diligence and do their own homework and find out about these things. And I've come from this very much from the point of view of electromagnetic fields. The use of our mobile phones, the extent we do, and our Wi-Fi and all that is really seriously undermining our health. And I would advocate everybody really seriously readdress their values in that respect, with things like home Wi-Fi and all that. But
home, from a technical perspective, there's no necessity to have Wi-Fi on. You just pawn Wi-Fi out of the box. No. You can actually have it quite easily on demand. So when you use it, it pulls it out. When you're not switching on, it doesn't need to come out. So
Well, do you know what? I think there's an even better argument for just using an Ethernet cable, which is what I'm using here. If you're wired, you get better security, better speed, better performance. It's just better all round, with a minor bit of inconvenience of having to join two things together. But I can live with that, with the health benefits. But Mark, I mean, in case people are getting really depressed and about to go off and slash their wrists because it all seems so hopeless, because a lot of people say, well, what can we do about this? Marching onwards of not only technological capability but policy just being shoved through by government, things like geoengineering, and now this, stuff happening, and you think, hang on, how can we stop this? Any thoughts?
You can stop it in a heartbeat. All we need to do is make sure, get as many people as possible, be part of the resistance. We've set up a political movement called Save Us Now. Get involved. It's a focal point, that's all it is. It's so people have a flag, a banner, so they can get behind something, a bit like, like any organizational structure. So you've got a loose ideological structure, which basically says the law says you cannot have experimental technologies used on you without either your prior consent. It's in breach of the Nuremberg Code. This is a crime against humanity. I say to people all the time, do not be despondent about this. Get involved. Get involved or die. Because I'll tell you now, we've drawn a battle line. You're either on the side of dying or you're on the side of living. And I want to live. I'm a fighter. We're part of the resistance. Get involved with the resistance. Get involved locally. These MPs are sending people documents and saying that it fits within the ICNIRP guidelines. It is dishonest. It is criminal. The ICNIRP guidelines only apply to exposures for no more than 6 to 30 minutes. 5G's on 24/7, 4G's on 24/7, 3G's on 24/7. The ICNIRP guidelines, if you go to their website, they actually have a legal disclaimer which tells you not to rely on those guidelines. But your government and your MPs and your councillors and all those idiots who we've elected, I mean, that's the stupidity of it. We've actually went and elected the most ignorant, self-serving criminal class I've ever seen in my life. So people, the opportunity is for change. See 5G is a positive thing because we've caught them in a criminal enterprise. Nicky Morgan's just turned around and said she's going to force local councils, obviously Glastonbury, Frome and others who said they don't want 5G, they're going to force it on them. Well, guess what? We are the resistance and people need to fight back, and you get organised into groups, get organised, and let's take the fight to them. These are public servants. They are not our masters. They work for a master. They are puppets. They're puppets, and we pay those puppets. We don't pay those puppets to work for international bankers or the people who want to harm us. Where they've broken the law, 5G is an indictable offence. It is harming the citizen. There is no research to show that it's safe. It's experimental. I know it's absolutely not safe because of the battlefield as a weapon system, and we can prove that in any court in the world. In international law, they have broken the law. No authority has the right to harm you.
No, absolutely.
No authority. And they are absolutely out of control. Really interesting document lately. There's a class action going on in the USA. It's just been launched in relation to smartphones. The smartphones where people have had them in their pockets, where the independent test have shown 500 times over the regulatory standard, the FCC standard, which I'm telling you now is not safe. It's not safe. 500 times over when they've been in people's pockets. So where people have getting breast cancer, people have been sterilised, people have got low sperm count, testicular cancer, where they've had these phones in their pockets. Unbelievable. And this tells you this technology's never been tested to be safe. It's supposed to be. The law says you've got to. I can't build a product and bring it to market if it's not fully accredited and safe. So
Yeah.
why have the telecommunication system in cahoots with governments rolling out technology that's not safe? Because I'm going to tell you now, it's like a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
That smart cooker, that smart TV, all those smart equipment that they're bringing into your home, your smart meter will kill you. It will. They'll kill you. I mean, the capacity of the equipment and the smart meter can set. Do you know what it's built for? When they tested it, they tested the smart meters in Grenfell Tower. All right, they were setting fire to appliances so much so the previous year Kensington Council had to give them an extra payment. Like it was about £280 each because it set fire to that many appliances in the homes. Well, guess what they were doing? They were testing the smart meters to set fire to the appliances because that's what your smart meter's for. It's to attack the appliances in your home. Smart stands for Secret Militarized Armaments and Residential Technology.
Certainly, the smart thing to do is to get rid of all smart devices, isn't it?
The whole point, what the trick was, what they're going to try and do, they want to build out the densification so all the equipment in your home, all that smart equipment,
Yeah.
it can be accessed remotely. I've spoken to people who've got Wi-Fi systems, HP printers. A lady contacted us the other day. She's got them all switched off. She came in, and the HP printer had been remotely switched on, 18,000 millivolts. Now you think about it. I come into your home, I switch your smart TV on, turn it up, smart meter, turn it up. All those smart devices in your home, your smart fridge, your smart, everything that's smart. I switch them all on, switch your mobile phone on in the middle of the night, and then you see that thing on the street light outside, EMP,
Yeah.
bump, and I take the building out, I take you out, because you're just a biological energy structure, I take you out, I take the building out, nothing left. Turn the place into a crematorium.
Yeah.
Quite a clever little trick. So
Yeah.
you build a smart city. So these smart cities, what they are, they're concentration camps, crematoria, that's what they are. They're building this smart city, this resilient smart city plan from the United Nations is to get you into a city, right, so they can actually murder you. And when they're finished murdering you, they can vaporize your body at the same time. Quite a clever little trick. Don't need to bury anybody.
Well, Mark, what in terms of defending ourselves against this technology is what can we do? Can we, use wire mesh? Can we use foil? Should we dig a hole in the ground? Do we run to the woods? What is there a way to guard against this technology?
There's lots of ways you can mitigate this type of radiation, but you can only mitigate it. And the same people who are behind this, they'll just rock up outside your door with some troops that have just trained from North Africa, and they'll shoot you. So what we've got to do, we've got to replace the criminals. This isn't about protection. This is about going on the offence. Best form of defence is offence. Section 3, the criminal justice system says you can use reasonable force to defend yourself. That's the law. We're taught about using the law. These lot are trying to kill you. I'm not kidding.
It certainly looks like the technology has the potential to do that, but it's a large leap to go from there to say that they're actually trying to kill us. I mean, obviously, making sure there's a gun in the room is at worst just a bit sneaky, but it's difficult to go along with the fact that they're deliberately trying to kill us, because at the moment there's so much plausible deniability behind that. Even if we take absolutely as on the record the fact that this technology has that ability to harm human life, that is a very, very serious point.
I'll explain something to you. All weapons development, you compartmentalise them. It's to make sure. I did a subsea, the BEA Systems Marconi project, and what I was given a bit of 22-inch diameter piece of wood, and I thought, what's that? And they said, no, what you need to do, you need to build this rig, blah blah blah. Anyway, it was basically on the back of a tab packet, right, with this bit of wood. Anyway, I ended up deploying this bit of hardware at sea, subsea, right, and it was actually a torpedo. It was a laser guided torpedo head. Now, if I hadn't went offshore with it, with the equipment, I wouldn't have known what that was. And that's how they do all weapons developments, that compartmentalize. So nobody really knows what's going on. Like the guys that build the equipment for Harvard Technology with his dielectric lens, with the target acquiring thing, they believe that the target acquiring an autonomous car, firing a collimated signal at it. No, they're not. That's just a smokescreen. That's to try and pretend to them that they've got some reason why they're building this technology. I'm telling you, I've looked at the equipment, I've looked at the capacity of the equipment, whether it be a smart meter, whether it be a smart phone, whatever it is, it's the same reason why the Apple and the Samsung smartphone 500 times the FCC standard. Now, how can you build a smartphone that can emit that type of radiation? It's impossible unless you're doing it to cause harm. Do you know, I mean, it's in the design of the product. You know what it's going to emit. So it doesn't take them 2 minutes. So there's a class action in America, which is very, very interesting. I believe it'll apply to a lot of other products out there that are making people sick and making them really ill. And there's no need for it. Like as you said, you're hardwired. I've always been hardwired. I don't use Wi-Fi. But if I go outside, my neighbour's Wi-Fi is coming into my home. I've had a word with all my neighbours. I try and tell them. And you know what some of the stupid fools say? What? Well, it was that dangerous. Your government wouldn't, they wouldn't allow you. But we've got 70,000 kids self-harming in schools. There's it used to be 1 in 10 got cancer. Now they're telling you it's 1 in 2. They're going to murder you. They might murder you slowly. I mean, at least the Germans used Zyklon B, so it killed you quick. I mean, they said it was humane. Giving people lung cancer, I mean, the increase in young women getting lung cancer now is massive. And the doctors are going scratching their head. Well, I'll tell you what will give you lung cancer. Breathing charged air. If I put a Wi-Fi box in a building and I'm charging the air and you're breathing it in, it's discharging in your lung, it'll cause oxidative stress and give you lung cancer. May as well be smoking 800 cigarettes a day. You've got women sitting in offices, you've got women in schools. I was at a hospital the other day, and obviously if I go anywhere, I can feel it on my eyes. My eyes get sore, I get a bad head, because I'm EMF sensitive. And what actually happened, walks into the hospital, I thought, shit, it's stinking in here, because I can sense it. Anyway, I didn't have a meter with us, but I had a mobile phone. Everything's off. Right, it's on airplane mode, everything's off all the time. Anyway, I put it on, checked the Wi-Fi. They had 7 separate routers and they were all on full tilt, all the bars up. And I said to the consultant, I said, do you know how toxic it is? No, one of the nurses all walked around massive. It's the body's defense mechanism trying to protect them from the microwave radiation. So they're all going to be ill. They're not getting their pensions. There's been a total disregard for people's health. Yeah. And there's a reason for it. It is impossible to get to this position where we're having experimental technology used on top of us. The LED streetlights are the key because they've already been warned. So why are they rolling them out when they know that they're dangerous to children? Why? And the environment. They kill small pollinators. They're toxic. I mean, what they're really good at is 3D mapping the environment. LED streetlights will map the environment. It's actually a scanner. It's part of the scanning equipment.
Do you have any recommendations, Mark, on what sort of devices people can best measure, 5G technology, it specifically, and indeed EMFs in general? Well, what do you use?
Just an ordinary tri-field meter, because all I'm measuring is the background radiation. So the blanket coverage radiation, it's in the sub-gigahertz. Mainly in the 868, it's anything from 700 megahertz to 900. So basic tri-field meter, that's one there. Basic tri-field meter, you can get them from 80 to 100 quid, and you can get an acoustimeter, which is pretty noisy, makes a nice noise. That's one.
That's one.
That one. Good enough to use, I mean, obviously they don't. I think 6,000 millivolts that goes up to.
It does, yeah. Peaks at 6 volts per meter squared, I think, or. So it's 6,000 millivolts.
Yeah. Well, this thing, I mean, 15, I was measuring one of these meme, the large tanks with the elongated top hat.
Hmm.
They're 5G transmitters. They've got cooler boxes at the bottom ready for when they turn them up. Those transmitters, I've measured them at 15,000. So this tri-field, it goes right up to it. That's a lot more dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, I very rarely see this thing in the locality sort of get off the stops, and it's just picking up sort of neighbour Wi-Fi that's we're about 200 meters away from here. So
It is one of them youths. I'm coming down. I want to live with you.
yeah. No, it's interesting because I'm curious about what we can do and other ways we can live, and I spend a lot of my time here on a small holding, and obviously it's not within everybody's capability to move out of the city and get away from all this electrosmog. But I can't help thinking that it's maybe a good idea to file in the back of one's mind, that the countryside and getting away from all these sorts of things, might be ultimately a way of avoiding all this sort of stuff and maybe redesigning a lifestyle.
Nicky Morgan, they're going to roll out 400,000 large transmitters around the country over the next 2 or 3 years. So you're not going to, it doesn't matter where you are, they're going to try and kill everything. Let's put it into perspective. Your stress, there's lots of science shows that this stresses pollinators. Your stress would be at about 30 millivolts. All right. There's actually evidence of that where they were exposed to very small amounts of microwave radiation, 30 millivolts, and they become very stressed, disorientated, and stressed, and will leave a hive at that level of radiation. So we've got Nicky Morgan, right, want to roll out 400,000 of these MIMO tanks, which beamwave radiation, I've measured them at a couple of 100 meters, 15,000 millivolts. So over a couple of miles, I mean, these things can kill pollinators as far as the eye can see. I mean, these are powerful pieces of equipment. I haven't even turned them up yet. This is the thing with 5G. They haven't turned it up. So, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, a lot of people don't like some of the things I say because I can be pretty offensive. But what I'm trying to tell people, not trying to fight them, I'm trying to garner their support to fight back, to become part of the resistance. These people are trying to kill you. Now, I'm not saying your government. They're just thick. The puppets are thick. The reason why they're called puppets because their heads are made of wood, right? They're made of wood. They're puppets. The controller, believe us, they know exactly what they're doing. They can't afford to pay your pension. They want you to pay into it. They don't want you to get it. So there's a monetary reason. Not only do they want your property, they don't want you to get your pension. They want to kill you. And what they're going to do, they're going to kill you quickly by using electromagnetic pulse weapon. I've run quite a lot of the numbers. I've seen what's happened in the test. The test in Paradise was pretty interesting. Seemingly there's 20,000 people missing. The switch on of the 5G in South Korea set fire to 5 cities. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at hell on earth where you're pouring enough of this energy into the environment where they'll actually set fire to everything.
What's your time scale for when's this sort of scenario likely to happen? I mean, I'm very concerned when I see an infrastructure growing around me, as it were, and I'm very familiar with the fact that governments aren't necessarily our best friend, and also the other means of financial exploitation. There's an awful lot wrong with the way our society is designed. That on the surface of it, anybody who's not really asking root cause questions will just think, well, it seems all right. It's got this veneer of acceptability. So I'm aware of my enemies, if you like, but an actual it's quite a jolt and it's quite a shocking idea to contemplate that technology could be used more or less with the flick of a switch, or some accidental power surge or something, and all of a sudden a lot of people are dead and taken out. That seems really quite.
Well, think
quite
about
alarming. Some people might say far-fetched too, but I mean, I can see some credibility there.
Yeah, I don't want to, that I keep hearing people go, it's far-fetched. Well, listen to this. Theresa May, Snooper's charter, there's no encryption, all right? It is an offence for me to build a fully encrypted system, all right? The weapon system that just roll out on top of you operates on Zigbee. It means anybody can access it. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to just blame somebody. It'll not be them. It's never them. They'll blame somebody else. The Chinese can control it. The North Koreans can control it. The Americans can control it. The Germans can control it. Anybody can control it. Some kid who's got a modicum of idea about how you can run around a platform. The operating platform Zigbee's already been compromised. It was in the WikiLeaks dump, and it's the main operating platform for 5G. So the potential for it to be able to be weaponized is there. It just depends who wants to use it. Now, is it your own government? I'm not bothered. Who wants to fit 5G technology outside of my bedroom window, whether it's the Chinese, the Americans, British government? I'm not interested who wants to roll it out. What I know it is a weapon in all of its technical parameters. I've had people go, oh, we'll out him. He's over egging it. I'm telling you now, get yourself down. I'll have an argument with you. Bring any of your top scientists, and I'll prove to you, without a shadow of a doubt, the equipment we're having fitted across the UK by our government, whether it be ignorance, stupidity, whatever it is, it's a weapon.
Well, thank you for making that absolutely clear, Mark. And I think it's something that we must all take seriously and look into. As I say, I come from the perspective that all these EMFs, 4G included, are dreadfully harmful, and we should all try and change our lifestyles away from being dependent on them. And just to be smart, just for there's an evolutionary imperative, I think, to do some thinking and figure out what can harm us and what can't. And so this is quite a jolt. And thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your perspective. You're knowing things about weapon systems and so forth. It's fascinating to get all this. Is there somewhere where anybody listening to this can contact you or pick up the ball further? You mentioned your organisation again. Maybe you can just repeat it, in the close.
Yeah, we've got a political movement called Save Us Now. It's the sun. The sun. And the reason it's the sun, it's because of the light. The light will shine, right? And it opens up and allows people to see in the darkness. All right? It's all prophecy. I mean, listen, I didn't get this, right? I get it now because there's no way. When I've looked at the equipment, I've looked at the densities, I've looked at the capability and the strategy. If you look at the United Nations strategy, resilient cities, smart cities, densification, the billions more transmitters, it's a kill grid. It's nothing more, it's a kill grid. We've already got the data, we've already got the significant cancer, brain cancer. Brain cancer is the biggest killer in adolescents in the USA. Brain cancer. And you've got idiots. I had some lunatic the other day said, oh, you'll be one of those people that thought that 3G and 4G was bad. Yeah, I was. Guess what? Microwave radiation in air is not good. It's pretty toxic, right? 5G is not that. 3G, 4G is a telecommunication system. 5G is a weapon. That's what differentiates it to everything else. It is the pre-planned attack on the country, what I call economic terrorism. It'll destroy, damage, fabric of buildings. Human beings will see massive increases in stroke, will see massive increases in childhood cancers. The impact on the NHS, it'll cripple it. That might be one of the reasons, because the controller, obviously, they don't want to give up the NHS. If they bankrupt it, they might have to give it up to the controllers. So the controllers are behind this. They don't like to see populations who are either prosperous or healthy, because you're a threat. If you're not healthy, you're not prosperous, you're not a great threat. The great thing is we are too early. For some inexplicable reason, God put me in Gateshead. And Gateshead was the epicenter test bed for the big daft angel of the north to test on the people here. So for whatever inexplicable reason, I'm an expert in this particular field. It is unbelievable. I'm not expecting people to believe us. Do your own research. Terrifying. Believe us, because it is the truth. Unfortunately, it is the truth. I have to wake up in the middle of the night thinking, have I just dreamt this? It's like living in a film. It's like one of these sci-fi mad. I mean, Nicky Morgan, they've just turned around and said they're going to force 5G large transmitters out right across the country. Doesn't matter about plant mission. They're going to dispel any local councils.
Who's Nicky Morgan, Mark? Sorry.
She's the minister for the DCC. Obviously, just another criminal, a terrorists. Where what she's saying is, I mean, obviously they're just thick. Like I said, they're just puppets. They've got wooden heads. They don't know what's going on around them. You know, they're like actors. They give them bits of scripts and they just say whatever comes out their mouth. Lunatics, really. But 5G is the opportunity to replace them. They've committed a crime against us. It's in breach of the Nuremberg Code. I can show the 5G technology in all its technical parameters is not only just a weapons system, it's experimental. It is illegal. It is unlawful.
Is there anywhere where we can link to access any of the technical parameters of this technology, Mark? Could you share with us any know-how on that? I mean, send me a link and I can leave it in the show notes below.
Yeah, you've got Grundman Weapon Systems. In fact, I just put a video up today on Facebook about a weapons program development in 5G. I mean, in the 60s. So we all knew about this for quite a number of years. But if people go to the Save Us Now website or send an email to info@saveusnow.org.uk, we've got 3 documents. Those documents show how to act lawfully within the law, how to act lawfully, how to bring these local authorities to account, or try to, but also it cuts a lot of the mess out because a lot of people still think they go knocking on that door, they get the same old. So when the first instance, when you write the MP or you contact local councils, go, by the way, don't send us the ICNIRP guideline. It's only a guideline, Pirates Code, not a standard. Don't send us anything because it doesn't apply to 5G because 5G is on 24/7 and ICNIRP guidelines are only for an acute exposure, 6 to 30 minutes max. So don't send me that because it doesn't apply to 5G. Thank you very much. So it cuts out all that nonsense. And when they do send you, Public Health England, the criminals at Public Health England have looked at this and they say it's safe. Well, I'm going to tell you now. There's no safety data on 5G, and the reason for that is because of weapon. I spoke with the Democratic Veterans Conference last year. That video was actually taken, it was reviewed by the White House, right? And in that video, I state, I'm one of the leading experts in the world in this technology. I'm going to tell everybody 5G doesn't pass any regulatory tests, no safety standards, nothing. It can't do. It's a weapon. That's why it hasn't been tested. The Congress, Blumenthal and Congress then got all the industry in and asked them the question, where is the safety data? Where's the research and safety data in relation to 5G? And they have admitted there isn't any. And there couldn't be any because it's a weapon. It doesn't pass any of them. It'll never pass them, and that's why they're rushing it and forcing it through on top of you today because they know it doesn't pass anything, and that is criminal intent to harm the citizen.
Well, look, thank you so much for taking your time this evening to share your knowledge and your perspective with us, Mark. I'm most grateful for that. And you've given your contact details there, so any interested listeners can jump onto that one. I'd like to say thank you so much for listening. I would recommend everybody look into these sorts of things. As always, we've got to think for ourselves. We mustn't just follow the herd. It's too dangerous to do that at the moment. There's too much at stake. So check out the website, lawfulrebel.com, and join us again here on Lawful Rebel TV.
Change you want to see. Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see. Be